Welcome to Prolix Comix Bollix with me, Clive, him,
Nick,
and special guest,
Robin.
Your fabulous.
Should we have some
Freak Brothers?
yeah, some proper nicknames like?
Oh yeah. Narcotic Nick. I don't know what.
Yeah, Narco Nick.
Narky Nick.
Nick.
Yeah.
All right.
What do you want to be? Roach Robin.
Roll up Robin.
Roll up Robin. And I'll be what starts with a C that's a bit
Camberwell Carrot Clive.
There we go then. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're talking Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers and some of the various iterations there are. There we go. Are they rip-off press reprints?
Some are, and I think some like this. Just because this one has a 75-cent thing on the top, my guess is that this may be first or close to first printing. But a lot of them are the ones that are more like $2.95 or $4. They're definitely reprints.
Right.
But they're all rip-off press though.
And this may be depending on if we can. Well, I know one of us can, but if the other two of us can get copies at a reasonable price at some point, this may be the first of a double bill because me and Robin, before we decided to do this Freak Brothers, we were talking about having Robin on as guest to talk about Russell and Big Bang comics, which I think would make an interesting companion with the Furry Freak Brothers, right?
Yeah. It's sort of the British version of Freak Brothers. Have you heard of it, Nick? Or
no, this was new to me when Clive mentioned it. So this is roughly the same time period? Is it the 70s?
Yeah, roughly. I think a bit later. I think it started in the early 80s, I think.
Yeah, I think the difference is it's a bit more like, from what I remember, it's a bit more about the kind of post-hippie lifestyle in the UK.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, and it's much more self-deprecating, but also existentially kind of angst. I mean, it's massively existentially angst. It's all about existential angst. In fact,
stay tuned for that. It'll all depend on whether, because I have no idea how in or out of print or how expensive or how anything, all that stuff is.
I think it's quite hard to find. Yeah, no.
Yeah, because I know you've probably got copies lying around.
I do. They're
some
a bit
of the
crusty, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's perfect, right?
Yeah, ideal. You could even just photograph them and share them that way, or there's various options. So we can also dig in and see if there's downloads somewhere. You'll be amazed at what's out there if you just dig around on the internet. So,
but anyway, until then, we're talking. So this started off. Me and Robin, we do another show called Day Release, and where we talk about films and a bit of TV. And we were going to talk about the recent Freak Brothers animated series based on this comic, right? And then we ended up kind of reading the comics as prep. And then I was thinking, well, this could be a Prolix Comix Bollix episode to get Nick on, and then we can talk about the hardcore unauthorized film version a little bit as well, Up in Flames. But going back to the beguine, which I guess is 1968. Gilbert Shelton creates the Fabulous Freak Brothers, Fat Freddy, Phineas, and Freewheeling Frankie, and of course Fat Freddy's cat. Is he from Austin, Texas? I think, right, Gilbert?
Houston.
Oh, is it Houston? Is it?
Houston, okay. Yeah, and then I think he gets to start doing for kind of like the underground press or you'd like university. Like a lot of these guys, and actually myself, when I was doing underground comics, they were published through the university press first, and then that's where you have a built-in audience of like people who are going to see your stuff if you're in the campus newspaper.
Right.
So, but I don't know if Wonder Warthog, because Wonder Warthog is his other most famous character. I don't know if Wonder Warthog predates or not the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers.
It seems to, yeah. What I read, it seems to. But
yeah, and those are quite fun too. They're
Actually, I just realized we should probably just put the brakes on there a little bit, because this is the first time we've had Robin on this show, and Robin is very much someone who is fond of comics as a consumer, and of course draws and animates a bit himself as well. So let's have a bit of, because we've blathered on in previous episodes, let's have a bit of Robin's history with comics.
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't call myself an avid comic reader though, but yeah, I think, well, I used, like you, Nick, I used to and you, Clive, maybe I grew up mainly on 2001.
2000 AD.
Yeah, 2000 AD. Sorry, not 2001. There you go.
But surely
My
before that,
memory.
you must have started with the Beano and Whizzer and Chips, and most of us, to some degree, are Oink. Or there was,
I sort of got into the Beano a bit, but I sort of hated it as a kid, even, and not because of being, too clever for it or anything like that. Just, I think but I did sort of hate the characters for the same reason I still hate them. I hated Walter Softy. I really disliked Dennis the Menace. Found him really annoying, and who else? There was no one. The only ones was it Dandy with the Bash Street Kids. Those were the only and
I think it was the Beano, wasn't it? Bash Street Kids?
Yeah.
Was that the Bash Street Kids?
So I was going to say, actually, I would have been surprised if you didn't like the Bash Street Kids. I would have thought you would have quite liked the Bash Street Kids. I liked the Bash Street Kids. I also liked Numbskull, or whatever it was. The one with the kids, the people in the brain. Yes. How about Calamity James?
No, I don't know about that one. Whether I like it.
Okay. The squelchy things. You don't remember the squelchy things?
No. Yeah, the same guy. We're gonna actually talk about him in a future episode. But Tom Patterson is in with us. He also did Sweeney Toddler, which I quite liked when I was a kid. He always had little stinky socks. They were really cluttered, little messy drawings, and they were. You could tell they were slightly not okay. They were just, there was a little bit of an edge to them that almost looked more underground than your DC Thompson kind of comic book stuff.
And I also know retroactively that Robin does have a certain fondness for the character of Little Plum. That's just because Robin was witness to the first time I ever smoked a bong.
Okay.
And went, are you remembering this? And went temporarily insane and started talking as if I was a Little Plum comic. So
wow.
Yeah, I took a huge hit off this bong for the first time in my life, and then went off into me heap big Indian chief talk, and talked like that for probably about 3 hours or something.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So apologies to any of our Indigenous viewers right now, and any previous students I might have had for what Clive has just said.
Well,
so Little Plum is a favourite of mine, even though I'm sure the comics are kind of a bit rubbish.
They're awful.
Desperate Dan was a bit rubbish.
Yeah, I was going to say, nothing in the Dandy struck me as any good. But Leo Baxendale, who did a lot of that stuff, like Invented the Bash Street Kids, he was an actual, I don't know if he can be a card-carrying anarchist, but he was hanging around the Freedom Bookshop and he was doing pamphlets and stuff.
Really?
It's kind of weird that he had this double career as guy doing, but you can kind of see it when you read the Bash Street Kids, that there's a strong anti-authoritarian bent to all of that stuff he did.
I think was it? Sorry, did you mention Oink as well? Was Oink?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oink,
or did you mention Oink just now? Or I've on a previous episode
No, I did. I said it just now. Yeah.
But I think you've mentioned that. But that's another thing. That was sort of like the Viz, but for kids, was it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did what? Wasn't it?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I did used to get that occasionally as well.
Oink was cool.
Yeah.
Charlie, what's his name? He's famous now for doing Black Mirror and
Charlie Brooker.
Yeah, he started off
in Oink.
writing for Oink.
Okay.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought you started off in not computer video games or whatever.
Yeah, but before that, he was doing stuff for Oink as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
But also,
very good.
I got given a load of comics when I was a kid. So I've got a load of sort of early Spider-Man and stuff like that. So I'd reread those, and yeah, I also had like the first sort of annual of Conan the Barbarian or something, or the first comic of Conan the Barbarian or something like that. Or was it? It might have been that or Thor. Anyway, and I went and like cut that up into little pictures and made a collage of it. But it said on the front, this might be worth a lot of money in many years, Robin. So don't ruin it. I was like, anyway.
Nice.
So that was me. I was a bit lucid and didn't really pay much attention.
How about pre-2000 AD? Did you get into any of the boys' comics like Eagle and stuff like that, or the war comics?
No, I remember I went around someone's house and they had a load of Eagle and Dan Dare, and I hated those two.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I found them really weird. I found them really, really weird. Like, oh, this is a sort of this really horrible alien world. I think as a kid, I reacted very viscerally to drawings and the way things were drawn, and I those comics were drawn to me so horribly that I couldn't cope with them at all. I found them, I don't know, just like disgusting.
Well, conceptually,
and anyone that likes them is sorry.
Desperate Dan is very weird.
It's very weird and horrible.
There's something quite sad about it. Like this grown man who lives with his mother in a nondescript kind of Western town, which is also the UK.
Yeah, very much Northern England. That's what's so. It's like it's placeless and timeless. That
who comfort eats with these huge fucking cow pie things.
Yeah,
and it's just very sad and strange. Yeah, and
he's definitely
something a bit Norman Bates about it.
He lives with constant sort of heart disease, doesn't he? Because of his rotund upper body sort of thing. You can see that off panel he's like
and clearly he's like a 50-year-old virgin or something. Because if he ever did try and shag anyone, he would kill them immediately, right, with his cow pie cock or whatever the fuck.
Or he'd just have a massive coronary and that would be the end of him.
Die on top of them.
Desperately diabetic Dan.
But yeah, it's funny for me when I would try to read Eagle. What I didn't like was because I was reading 2000 AD at the same time, and 2000 AD to me, like the art seemed fresh and new and kind of like there was a certain edge to it, right? But the Eagle still looked very 50s. It had this very kind of like.
Yeah, this is true. That's what the appeal for me was the retro look.
See, it would appeal to me now, definitely, like that art style, but. Yeah,
as a kid, I wanted to see Kevin O'Neill's like whatever weirdness he was doing, in Nemesis the Warlock or something. And wasn't that excited by that more Frank Bellamy, very painted kind of thing.
Yeah.
So obviously we all had 2000 AD as a very important part of our growing up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the thing about 2000 AD for me as well. I always felt a little bit like. Because I was coming in the middle of it, I felt like I was joining, like, on the one hand, I really enjoyed reading it on a weekly basis. But on the other hand, I found it really daunting because I wanted to catch up. And I would look on the back, they had those ads for like the 2000 AD monthly reprints. And, I'd make lists of like ones that I wanted. And I was always like, oh, no, I'm not like, so, because it always seemed like, I don't know, like Rogue Trooper ran in the weeklies, but it always seemed like there was this golden age
Yes, I think there
Road
was.
Trooper and Halo Jones, although I've since found out that Halo Jones is massively overrated.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the other stuff. And I never did actually catch up with it, maybe until kind of within recent years, actually, because I kind of fell out of comics for a bit and then. But yeah, it always seemed like, oh my God, there's so much, stuff to catch up with when it comes to 2000 AD.
Well, all comics, it's one of the biggest blocks, I think, to young people now getting into comics, especially if they're trying to get into things like, DC or Marvel or whatever, is that there's like 70 years and everyone seems to feel the need to like make everything very continuity bound, and constant. And, it's one of the problems as well with things like new Doctor Who as well. At a certain point, they try to get away from it always having you had to know and have seen every extant and non-extant episode to be able to keep up. But then it always goes back to fan wankery for some reason, where there's this need to continuity porn, I think they call it, right? And I think it makes it. I don't want to read Batman because it seems like I'm going to have to spend years reading Batman, unless you cherry pick a few, maybe Frank Miller's book.
Well, to me, I'm just going to offend every comic book fan, but I keep going into
perfect. That's what the show's all about.
That's what we do on this show. Yeah. That's why we only have 2 listeners.
Yeah, I'm one of them. But yeah, I don't know, like Batman, for example. Yeah, it's got some good elements, hasn't it? But you would have to read a lot of it to get the good stuff. Whereas it could be condensed to something good. And because I keep going into the comic book shops and asking for, because I want a really good, like a really good sci-fi that's in one volume, so I can read it and just read it in one sitting, pay 20 quid or something for a graphic novel, and yeah, I don't know, they fucking struggle with it. So like, all right, or like, do you want the Dark Knight series? No superheroes. Oh right, oh okay. So then like no Marvel? Well, if it's got superheroes, I don't really want it. Right. So
X-Men, they're like mutants.
No, look, I don't want any fucking but
you're right. You're almost better off going to, because Clive and I have started to just dip our toes into European comics, meaning not British necessarily. And this seems to be, like with Japanese comics, a lot more of a much wider array of potential topics. That, like we were at some of the, like what was it, Corto Maltese, which are all like seafaring adventure stories from like the 1800s and stuff, and just stuff that's not superheroes. Because you're right, North American comics is almost totally, and now North American cinema is totally superhero.
And but then the other side of it is sort of like the Alan Moore kind of, I don't know what you would call Alan Moore and what he created and stuff, but it's kind of more thoughtful explorations of ideas. But then I don't know, there's certain style of, so I got recommended different things, and they're all got this other comic style that I really dislike as well, which is sort of over the top characters that piss me off, and that are kind of like do stuff that's not really in character or something, so they go, well, it's fuck shit up, yeah, and oh, you've got to read this is brilliant.
I'm imagining Tank Girl for some
sort of Tank Girl, but the more male version, sort of like a kind of nice sort of always a kind of like a condensation of sort of toxic masculinity, if you like, but I don't really want to use it's
Mm.
just shit masculinity, like, oh, so I did it. It's just crap writing, basically. And I've been gone into these shops asking for a sci-fi, and that, you got to read this, though. This is fucking.
Right.
And then it's shit. It's really
Space Bros.
Yeah, well, it was supposed to be more. It's supposed to be
Wars.
more subtle than that. But still annoyingly shit. Still annoyingly overly masculine, and like, and just. But it's not the, it's not the masculinity necessarily. It's the shitness of the character, or the main characters that pisses me off in the end.
I think what I found really liberating, for me was like, at first I got stuck in that tangle you were talking about, Nick, of like, okay, I gotta do the canon, like I gotta do the classic Supermans or Fantastic Fours, and and I just got so bogged, like you were saying as well, Robin. A lot of that stuff, even the classic era stuff, like I absolutely love the artwork. Like I love looking at the panels.
Oh yeah, Jack Kirby's
But
still.
the storytelling is just, it's just as, even sometimes but even if often if at its very best, it still doesn't really work now. And so for me, I was like, okay, you know what, fuck this. I'm just gonna go by instinct and go by things that jump out at me. And since I've started doing that, I found it a lot easier to negotiate the comic, to almost be slightly arrogant about it. Like, I don't need to read all that classic stuff, like I'm going to make my own canon kind of thing. And for me, that's worked well. So I find comics less daunting now.
Yeah,
and who knows, by the back door, I might come round to that stuff again in the future when I'm more comfortable with it. But for now, I'm going to have to give it a wide berth. And yeah.
I'll tell you what I miss. I miss having a cassette tape taped to the front of my comic book with a game for my Spectrum 48K on it. That's something that, the free game, the free gift, is something that I think comics need to get back into.
I don't remember them on comics. I remember them on
sometimes gaming magazines.
Game magazines, yeah.
Yeah. But every now and again, they would also,
Yeah, I think I remember some stuff like that. Yeah.
I just remember getting like some kind of candy bar or a badge or a
right. Yeah.
pinning device of some kind.
Yes, yeah.
I've got the first issue of Manga Mania, and that's got a little badge on the front.
Manga Mania was an interesting one. When did that launch? Like
1991, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just kind of after Akira and stuff.
The Akira boom.
Yeah.
Had Akira in it.
I remember that I had a friend in school who was obsessed with that stuff. And again, oddly enough, the reason I was a bit hesitant to get into that stuff is still to this day, to a certain extent, it was a really piecemeal. Like, for instance, like, I can't even remember what was in Manga Mania, but like, they probably had like some Akira, and then they'd have, I don't know, some Urusei Yatsura, and they'd have, but it was always like, you never knew when the next, it didn't feel like stable, like Manga Mania could suddenly disappear, which I think it did after a while, right? And so you never knew, I'm never going to see the end of this story.
Yeah.
So,
well, we were in Carmarthen, we were in Wales as well, so I had to travel to Carmarthen and remember, or just to get, Manga Mania by bus sort of thing.
Wouldn't have been in, it wouldn't have been in every newsagent. It was quite thick, if I remember correctly.
It was thick, but it was, and it sort of, if it's sold out in that one newsagent, then that's it. Forget it. Yeah.
And it had the other thing I did like about, because my friend bought it, so I borrowed something, because it also had articles on like other things in Japanese pop culture. So it had a lot of stuff about movies in it. Like I remember one of them had like a whole article when Tokyo Drifter and Branded to Kill first came out on video, and it had articles on stuff like that, which was kind of cool for what was basically ostensibly a kind of comic aimed at children, right?
what I like about Japan is that when you move there, and if you are somebody who has a tendency towards wanting to hoard or collect things, you kind of have to get over it. Because like I'd be on the train and somebody would have just like left a doorstop or comic book just on this because they finished it and they got off the train like I'm not taking that with me. I finished reading it and I'm like, oh, I should take that home and put it in a Mylar bag. And then I realized within a week of living there, I'm going to live in a fire trap. Like my house will just be full because people just read it. They're completely disposable. They're not collectible in that way. They're not collectible until they're bound together into like books. And then to some degree, people still stock them in shelves. But the actual comic books, the weekly ones, they're just thrown on the ash.
Or until you try to buy them in Britain. Have you read the one I started reading, but then I sort of ran out of money. Just speaking about Japanese comic, which is what is it called now? I keep forgetting it. High school. Anyway, it's about all of the students at this high school are clones of. You've got Hitler. You've got Florence Nightingale. It's a nicely bizarre one. You've got Florence Nightingale. You've got Mozart. You've got all these and they're sort of there for the benefit of the rich to sort of, I don't know, be their kind of surrogate children in a way, I think.
Is it a new comic?
No, it's from 1990. I think from 90 or 2000 and something. Actually, I think it's 2000 something. Yeah, it's high school. Is it called High School Academia? Yeah, it's got probably a different name in Japan. So,
Is it what I mean? Is it are the
My
English...
Hero
My Hero Academia? Yeah.
Academia,
okay, so yes, that was quite popular here just within the last few years. A lot of the kids were talking about it actually because I think they, like everything, it was adapted into an anime series.
Wait, am I right, or is it that one, or am I? Because there's no, it's not that, is it?
Okay,
it's not My Hero Academia. Yeah, that's why I always get it confused with that one.
Oh, okay.
It's not My Hero Academia.
Because I'm thinking I didn't remember Hitler being in that. Now that I'm thinking about it.
1 second. You've got one down here.
Was it called After School Charisma?
After School Charisma. That's why the fucking title is so weird itself. After School Charisma. It doesn't. After School title. Charisma. When
you say it's from the 90s, do you mean originally it's from the 90s and it's recently been translated, or the translations are from the 90s?
I don't know. I thought it was 2000 something. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's anyway, it was good, but I didn't know where they were going with it. I've got to book 5, and then I was thinking, how much am I going to have to spend? Because I don't know how many you get out of these things.
Well, according to Wikipedia, there's 12 volumes.
Okay, well, some of them were really hard to track down, and then so they go up to sort of 20 quid or something.
Yep.
And I think I stopped there. I was saying, am I going to go pay 20 quid and then multiply that by another 5, 6? I don't know. Is it worth it? It's good. But
it's more recent than the 90s. It's started in 2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's certain things. I mean, there's if you know that you love something intensely, then But yeah, unless you know that for sure, the only thing I've ever spent that kind of money on is my full collection of Kozure Okami, Lone Wolf and Cub, which does take up like an entire. Most of my book, the top part of my bookshelf is just those. Each one is like
it's not amazing. It's quite pulpy. This Hitler's pretty funny. He's like this. Really sensitive, nice kid. He's like, he's always going.
But it's funny. Japan feels comfortable doing that. Like there was a famous one that was running when I was living there for a while, which was about Jesus and Buddha, and possibly a third, like living as like the young ones, like as like college roommates.
They turned it into an anime series. My wife was a big fan of that.
Okay. Yeah, but I remember just being like, the concept was so hilarious to me that it would be so, you know, they were like, yeah, these are just characters you can just use. Like there isn't all of the stuff around.
Anyway,
Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers.
Yes, we could probably do this for hours, but I just wanted a bit of a introduction.
Big Gilbert Shelton fans have tuned into
Robin,
this.
and then we forgot, and we just ended up blathering on. Anyway, yes. So
Gilbert Shelton.
Yeah,
Gilbert Shelton. Yeah.
Where would we have? Because I know the answer to this, so I'll go first. But where would you have first read Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers? I would have read it. So there was I looked at it because I was trying to figure it out. There was a very short-lived, after Viz was a hit, there were all these kind of attempts at launching adult comics in the UK, right? And there was one called Talking Turkey, which I don't know if you've ever heard of. And it was my sister's old fiance had a whole bunch of issues, I think, which he gave to me. And from what I remember, a lot of it was reprints from underground comics from the 60s. So it was like Hunt Emerson and stuff like that was in there. And plus sometimes you'd get Furry Freak Brothers or Fat Freddy's Cat or stuff like that. So I think that's when I first read Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, when it was in Talking Turkey magazine. How about you lads? When did you first encounter the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers?
I think for me, I would have been in this form, like in the reprints, basically. And it would have come through the fact that I was a proper anarchist at the time, right? And I was doing comics that were sort of smash the state kind of stuff. And so somebody probably either told me or said, oh, you should check out, Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, because there definitely is that anarchic bent in those old things. So yeah, I'm guessing I don't think I came across it via anything other than being in a comic book store and being like, oh, I think this is what people have been talking about, or somebody had told me, check it out. And I did. And obviously liked them enough to buy all of them. That's what surprised me, was when I was going through the box and like, wait a second, when did I buy all of them?
I have to admit, I was such surprised when you told me this. I didn't have you pegged as a Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers reader necessarily.
Well, I think after Robin explains where he heard about them, I'll explain what my whole feeling about all of it is, and why I like the ones I like.
You said you couldn't smoke weed because you get deported.
Yes.
But did it just make you think, well, at least it feels like I'm smoking weed?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, it's kind of an interesting question though, because that I was wondering about that as well, because even though it's not, exclusively just about that, it's definitely got, it's stoner humor, and I do wonder how some of it plays
to a straight audience.
Yeah. Oh, mind you, I'm assuming that you'd.
Or you mean if you take the weed
been
out?
High, you might have had some experience of being high. I don't know, but when you you weren't a regular smoker, at least.
Yeah.
No, I have still never smoked pot.
Oh, for legal purposes, Nick has to say that.
No, honestly, I haven't. The only thing I've ever done is
heroin. Which I do every day before
I shoot it into the white of my eyeball. No, it's salvia, which was legal in Japan for this weird window of time before it was made illegal, and that's it. Partly, I don't like
synthetic. Is that the synthetic marijuana type stuff that makes you feel horrible for days after? No.
Oh. It's salvia divinorum or whatever it is. It's like a shamanistic thing, the ideal situation to do it in is apparently like a sensory deprivation tank kind of thing. You can have your dream quest.
But what is it? It's what?
Like a cactus, like peyote, or?
I think so. I don't know enough about it. I was with a rock star in the back alley of Roppongi. So the best place. I was hilarious. I mean, I laughed a ton. I assumed that's how I knew it was working, because everything seemed very funny to me. And I had a certain amount of dead leg, like that kind of heavy leg syndrome, and
So but it was perfectly legal at the time.
At the time, it was, yeah. You could buy it, and there were these weird little head shops in Rapong, which I had no idea about until my rock star friend took me in, and he was like, "This stuff is legal here. It's not legal in the US. I'd like to try it." So me and him and his roadie.
You used to hang out with Justin Bieber quite a lot.
I did, yeah. He's a wild man.
And Macaulay Culkin.
Yes.
So
I mean, but then I had, of course, as a teenager, I had watched the Cheech and Chong, right, who seemed to have lifted a fair amount of their shtick from the Freak Brothers, right, and loved Up in Smoke. So yeah, I mean, the stuff. What's funny is funny. You don't have to be a stoner to appreciate stoner humor. There's elements of like. It's funny in a way. What some of this reminds me of is The Young Ones, which I always loved. I loved even when I was 8 or 9 when it was first being shown on TV. It was an immediate thing. Like I was attracted to that sad, grotty house with 4 college students just being scummy. There's something exciting about that trope or whatever the hell it is.
It's got a.
When did you read the Freak Brothers and Robin?
Me having hippie parents and having everyone who, or rather my dad anyway, and then everyone he knew being a hippie, the comics were in their houses. So I think it was Devon. I think so. And I was trying to think when the first time I read it was I think as a sort of like a developing kid, as in sort of 10-ish, I feel like anything I had that could read that had boobies in it, and I would immediately try and read it. But I do remember I preferred. I preferred Freak Brothers to Big Bang, which was obviously like that's our family comic in a way, or that the Devon, where I was from in Devon, or where my dad was from in Devon. That was the comic, because it's from exactly there. It's from Barnstable anyway.
Well, your dad's in it as well.
Yeah, my dad's in it, but that's in black and white, whereas the Freak Brothers was in colour later on, wasn't it?
Some of it is, yeah.
Yeah, I just found that so much easier to read and nice to look at.
Nice colouring as well, actually. I found
that is the later artist, isn't it?
Yeah, there's three artists basically. Gilbert Shelton's always been there and has always been involved in the design and the art, and he did all the original comics. But then he brings in Dave Sheridan, who has a much more like fully painted kind of look, and they did some really beautiful stuff together. And then Dave Sheridan died really young, sadly. And then Paul Mavrides, if that's how you say his name, he came in and he's kind of consistently worked ever since.
But his artwork's quite a bit more sinister, I find, but I quite like it.
Yeah, because he was a punk, right? So by that point, I think, and he was one of the founders of the Church of the Subgenius.
Nick, tell us what that thing is.
I mean, I was never like that heavily kind of. They were like a mock church. They were kind of like there was what was the character's name that would. Clive, do you know? There's a specific kind of dude with a pipe who used to be on all of their.
I forget his name, and I forget the main guy's name as well. It's not Joe Bob Briggs, but it sounds something.
Yes,
Bobby Job Bob.
But yeah, they're basically. I think they were sort of a bunch of weird kind of punks and anarchists and hippies. That kind of this whole milieu in San Francisco invented this Church of the Subgenius, and
I was first clued into them. I think I was too young and therefore not hip enough to kind of understand that it was coming from a place of parody.
Parody, yeah, it's a parody religion.
So sometimes I thought, wow, these guys believe some weird far out.
Yeah, it seems really legit when you see the books and stuff. And but I knew about them because I think they were connected in some way to research. Who published all of those books, the Pranks book, which there's certain kind of Bibles of that time of the early 90s for people who were into alternative stuff. The Incredibly Strange Music books, the Incredibly Strange Film book, the Pranks book. And I think they were also, I'm sure they were doing some of the Subgenius stuff.
And then for some people, I never went that route, but some people were also into the body art tattoo and piercing ones as well, right?
Yes.
But I never went down that route. I'm still as pure, unblemished young man. Actually, I think we all are, aren't we? None of us have tats, and none of us have piercings, right?
I had earrings when I was like 15, and I let them heal.
Be gone!
Same.
You are banished from this.
No, I'm the same, Clive. So you're on your own.
Already? Yeah. I'm alone.
But the holes have long since healed over.
I don't remember you having anything when we were in
no, it's the same as just 15. Yeah, it was short-lived anyway. It didn't really.
Yeah,
I wasn't very good.
For some reason, I never got the bug. I never. I didn't see what the appeal of having.
Well, clearly I didn't either. After about 6 months, when I took them out and let the holes grow over.
For me, it was 2 weeks. I think.
It's J.R. Bob Dobbs is the name of the.
Right, there we go.
The guy with the pipe. So anyway, Paul Mavrides was heavily involved in that stuff, and yeah.
Remember when our mate Chris got his tongue pierced and his tongue just swole up to fill his mouth?
Well,
no.
Yes, sort of, yeah, but
yeah. No, so I was always put off. But although I have to admit, I do appreciate women with pierced tongues.
Really? Nah.
And not aesthetically. I mean,
no. I know what you're talking about, Clive. I specifically know because you've told me the stories, not because I personally experienced it. But yes,
just like you haven't done any drugs.
Exactly. Yeah. But okay, so maybe let's quickly talk about the comics themselves. I really like the early stuff, and so coming back to it, that's why I think I continued to buy them, was hoping that it would get back to being as good as the first comics, which are basically all like one-page gag strips. So I would imagine they were mostly, again, published in the underground press originally, or in the student newspapers and stuff, and then finally collected together into this volume.
They were published in High Times in the
later on, yeah. The color stuff is all from High Times. But this early, the more 60s black and white, the very earliest stuff is all, as I said, I think is mostly university press, or then maybe other underground newspapers. But this stuff, just like, I belly laughed far more reading the first 2 or 3 issues, and then for me, it was really a law? Nope, whatever that thing of diminishing returns is. Is it a law of diminishing returns?
It's the law of diminishing.
There we go. Okay.
So stoned, isn't it, guy?
The further I got, like by the last stuff, when it gets more story based, when it's these kind of epic long stories, I was like, I preferred it when it was just these stupid, silly, one-shot gag things.
I'm the opposite, I think.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I preferred it.
Elucidates, gentlemen.
I didn't find it very funny, and I don't know whether that was off the back of what we're going to talk about as well, which was I started watching the cartoon, the animation. I don't know. First, having like I say, I was familiar with the with the comic from the age of about 10, whatever it was, but yeah. So, but I haven't read it for I don't know how long, 20 years or something. I don't know. So yeah, the animation was shit, I think. Well, a bit boring.
We're definitely going to talk about that.
Yeah, but but as off the back of that, it wasn't necessarily shit, but it was what I didn't find it funny. So off the back of that, then the humor in those short strips was sort of, they were trying to emulate that, and then it sort of,
but not like it did. But for some reason, it doesn't work. It didn't work for me in that format at all. Whereas I would often laugh.
It's not for want of trying. That animation, it had had a good heart, sort of thing.
Yes,
but it's very difficult to. Part of the appeal of the comic is sort of that it's drawn and written down. I don't know why you can kind of, I wouldn't say I laughed, but you can chuckle a little bit, or I don't know, enjoy the kind of the short form mayhem or something. But I did prefer it when it got like the Idiots Abroad, and then the one where they I thought the one where they got that bus and took it around,
right?
Was just lovely. Like
that one actually I do like. That one I do like, and I like Grassroots, which I think is maybe one of their first series of connected stories.
Right,
but it is still kind of one pages, but they kind of add up to tell a longer story, and that one I thought was pretty funny.
For me, I think the whole thing is so hit and miss in a way that so the early strips are, some are vaguely amusing and some aren't. Some of them are pretty weak. So I think what I like is when they become these bigger stories, like I don't know, it kind of aggregates it. It kind of makes more sense to me, because if you're following a whole story, it doesn't matter if it's not funny for a while, because you've got the story, right? And then there's gags every now and again. But then I like when it started doing that. But the last of the 3-part going around the world, when that got a little bit, that stopped, that forgot to be funny for a while. It got really polemical.
Yeah.
And less funny. But I like the first two. And then the third one was like, oh, okay. It's kind of interesting, but it's so text heavy as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. But
it was very preachy.
What I like is what I like about it is, or not that particularly, but the longer form things is, it explores kind of is when I think it's at its best when it explores, kind of silly ideas or I don't know, where you could like, for example, with the bus, you could implement that. They get this bus, and this shabby old bus that they love, and they turn that into like what would nowadays actually be a really good like idea. Charge people 30 quid to take them to and just have a really wild fucking bus tour type, where you get to your destination, but you go in this freaky bus with a load of random passengers. That was such a nice idea, and that actually would work in real life. I thought when they approach that, it's really good in that in those comics.
When something escalates, I think, is when it works best, isn't it? It starts with a simple idea and then leads to this, and it feels really organic. Like you can almost imagine him drawing the comic as he goes, kind of thing.
Yeah. And when I read it as a kid, those aspects were also the thing that drew me in. They were like, it was like a comfort comic for me, like reading it.
Yes, and so the other thing is, at that point too, the art is really top notch. That's when Sheridan was doing these beautiful painted.
Yeah, that's the color I was talking about, particularly in that one.
These are and these would have been printed in. I think that was one from High Times. So High Times would have had the like glossy magazine paper and the ability to do this. Looks like watercolor kind of stuff.
Well, also I think the other connection isn't the where I forget his name, the guy who died quite young, the guy who founded High Times.
The guy who founded High Times.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was on that tour, whatever, I can't remember what it was called, but that documentary Medicine Ball Caravan is about it, like when they went around the US in a bus, and like
Tom Forcade or Forcade?
Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
He was on the Medicine Ball Caravan bus, right? And I can't even remember. It's been a while since I remember the folks are in it. But
it would be a nice thing to do. I'd love to do that. No, I actually would love to do it. Yeah.
There's a methane powered bus.
Yeah.
But that's because you have children, Robin. So you want to get out of the house, I believe. It's what you're trying to say.
But the other thing that I think I like about it, and I'm being Clive, we've talked about this before, is that there's no sacred cows here in a way, and this is not a hippie comic that's like hippies are great and hippies are sweet and hippies are all peace and love, and like they're a sketchy trio of people, and the people around them are even sketchier, and there's definitely that I really appreciated. Like they're not saints in any way, shape, or form, and it definitely pokes as much fun at the counterculture as it does at the straight culture, I think.
Yeah, what I like about it as well is it has little, like, it's kind of like that whole thing about you critique, you don't need to critique the other side of the aisle because it's so obviously like wrong, but you have to critique your own people. You have to keep them in check. So so it's this whole big parody of the counterculture, but at the same time you get these brief flashes, like in some of the comics they suddenly just show, like, for no reason at all, it's like some cops beating someone with a trench, like, just to remind you that there's a that these are our good guys in a way, but even they're fucked up. But beyond that, there's an even more dangerous world.
Oh yeah. And I think living in San Francisco, I mean, you can even read stories up until the 80s, of like punk shows, like they would just run in and beat the crap out of everybody at the Black Flag show and stuff. Like, it was just weird that kind of police brutality aimed at kids just continued in the States for like decades on decades.
Whenever Norbert the Narc, is it Norbert the Narc?
Yeah,
really gets involved. There's an opportunity there, isn't there, to just show massively inept police brutality, which is nice.
So it's you mentioned that some of these, the later ones we were talking about, when were they were actually probably
made in the 80s and even the 90s, I think.
It's interesting 90s, how it doesn't really move on. It's funny because you read the comics in more or less order, the collected 30 volumes, and apart from now and again, like near the end, there's a few references to like someone has a camcorder or something like that.
Or they're using computers, but they're not personally using computers. They're talking about going. I don't know what they're doing. Like renting. The last one was about going through doing a computer matchup because they all get sick of each other and they leave each other.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And it's weird. Apart from those few kind of little blips, it almost feels like it all takes place in the late 60s. Like, I didn't feel as if, this is the 70s now, or maybe early 70s. I certainly didn't think, we've moved into the 80s. Like, the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers world doesn't really change that much. And then every now and again, there's, these kind of things. So it's strange in a way. It seems to have stayed in this kind of weird kind of bubble, right? This kind of hippie bubble.
A nice time capsule of them, which again goes into the animation as well. But Big Bang, incidentally, has a similar theme that goes through, where the final sort of comic of Big Bang, it involves, for a start, it involves Russell, the main character. He sort of lives in a flat, a sort of student flat, sort of a flat share thing, and it just shows you through, I think, a couple of panels, everybody coming and going, but him just staying stoned the entire time, and everybody developing around him, and then eventually by the end of that 2-page spread with all these different hairstyles and different people, and he goes, I've got to do something with my life. And then he actually does, for the first time in his life, do something. And
that does sound familiar. Yeah, we're gonna have to talk Big Bang, I think. That's a point.
So I was going to just quickly say that. So I don't know if you know this, but it was optioned way back in the 70s by Universal for a movie, right? And then Universal sat on the rights for several years and never did anything with them, never produced them. And it was kind of widely believed that it was because Universal had made Up in Smoke and had made all of those Cheech and Chong movies, and that they basically didn't want a competing franchise of stoner hippie humor.
Yeah.
So this is why we didn't get a 1970s, movie. So what we did get is the very unofficial porno version.
Well, it's a shame in general as well, because if you think about the history of stoner comedies, I mean, there's not many very good ones at all. I mean, Cheech and Chong, Up in Smoke, I think, is great.
Yep.
And then all the other Cheech and Chong films are not.
Yep.
And I can't think of any other. I mean, there's been some more recent ones which are just awful, like those Pineapple Express and Seth Rogen things, and like I don't like the modern stoner.
I don't know. Would you consider, because I do like The Big Lebowski a lot, would you consider The Big Lebowski to be a stoner comedy?
Well, it's Coen Brothers, so it's a bit distant. Like I don't think of it as a stoner comedy more. Right. I mean, I know what you mean.
But the dude, I guess, the character of the dude.
Yes, become a stoner icon, hasn't he? But it's not really. It's not in the vein of any of the. Harold and Kumar is the one that last stoner thing I think I enjoyed.
Right.
It feels Big Lebowski feels a bit more like an outsiders looking in rather than But I suppose at least it's a good film. Although I'm not quite sure how. I mean, I don't think if I've ever seen The Big Lebowski stoned. I think I have. I don't think it worked. Like Up in Smoke. Up in Smoke's one of those great films, I think, because Up in Smoke's funny anyway, but it's also funny on a different level if you're stoned. Like it's one of the few. I really like Up in Smoke because it's one of the few examples I can think of a proper stoner comedy that works as a stoner comedy that's actually funny, but is also funny if you're not stoned. Like, right. It's quite a difficult thing to make the stoner comedy, I think. Like, to make a good stoner comedy, which is why I can't really think. I mean, there's other films that work if you're stoned, but the thing is, if you're stoned, like, almost anything's. Like, Schindler's List is pretty hilarious if you're stoned, right?
I'll take your word for that. So do you want to speak quickly, Clyde, before we get into the episodes of the TV series to the 19, what is it?
Yes, I will, but I just wanted, I just wanted to say, so my big takeaway from the Fabulous Furry, I suppose, the collected Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers is, I mean, taken as a whole, I think it's a really worthwhile read, but it's really difficult to pick out, like, individual volumes or... So I would say get yourself the collection and then kind of read them slowly at your leisure rather than read them all in a week like I did, which was a bit much.
Would you would you want to see a film of it? I think I would, actually. If it were some of those stories that are in the volumes could be translated quite well.
I think I'd like to see an animated film that didn't do even though I like the idea, the time shift idea, but just did it straight up, just did kind of like the Fritz the Cat films or something like that.
All right.
Yeah, like a Ralph Bakshi
version, yeah.
Anyone else got any further things to say about the comics they wanted to?
No, I was surprised that I enjoyed them as much as I did because I hadn't touched them in 20-something years, and then didn't even realize I still owned them all. And then pulling them out, I laughed more than I expected to. And in a way, I think coming from a slightly different headspace than maybe when I bought them as well, I appreciated them on a different level than back then. It was probably more the radical stuff. So I probably was more. This often happens with me. I was probably more excited about The Idiots Abroad then because it was more preachy and more directly kind of like irreligious and all the other stuff that's going on there. Whereas this time I just really enjoyed the like the sketchier, sillier, grosser stuff.
Who's your favorite brother? If you had to hang out with one of the brothers, which one would you hang out with? I definitely wouldn't hang out with Phineas. He seems really annoying.
Probably Freddy, I would guess. But it's interesting. Well, when we get to the cartoon, it's interesting what they sort of do, because they highlight different elements of their personalities. I feel slightly. But yeah, Phineas or Freewheelin' Frank.
I think it would be Freewheelin' Frankie for me.
Yeah. I tell you what reminds me of Freewheelin' Frankie, if they ever did do the live action one, actually, is Matthew McConaughey's character in Dazed and Confused.
Yep. And that's, I mean, it makes sense in a way because, you know, Matthew McConaughey, I mean, because the person who is voicing him, I think, is doing a great job. I would say, back, I really, all three of the voice actors can't be faulted, I don't think. It's the writing that's letting them down, not their performances.
None of the jokes.
Woody Harrelson is great.
All right, we'll get to that then. So let's quickly do. Yeah. So first of all, from the year of 1978, we did get Up in Flames, which was clearly a play on the Cheech and Chong film Up in Smoke. We don't know who made this, but it's like an hour-long porno film starring Richard Mailer, Harry Lewis, and Bob Robbins as three entirely interchangeable hippies.
Yep. And yet, what's crazy about it is
Freddy isn't even fat.
No. But what's crazy is in the opening montage of the film, right? Because this is an unofficial rip-off thing, but they go to the trouble of actually just like placing the comic book covers with the name of the characters and like right on screen. Like, this is
and it's not only a Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers ripoff. Mr. Natural, Robert Crumb, Mr. Natural is in there as well, with
the world's worst cotton wool beard.
But at least they gave him a beard. They haven't done any. So the three main. So there's another, actually quite irritating and annoying, but at least admirably authentic porno film from around the same period called Sex in the Comics, which is.
I have seen too. Yes.
Yeah, which is like it's the old Tijuana Bibles brought to life. And in that film, they really went to town with having the actors wear like these weird masks and things to make them look just like the comics.
Like Blondie and that. Blondie and Dagwood.
They went for it.
Yeah.
In this one, I couldn't. You wouldn't be able to guess which one Fat Freddy. They don't even have the hair, the beards, let alone fake noses. Plus, I got confused. Like, you're introduced to three characters, and then it doesn't because basically the whole story is the landlady, as played by Colleen Anderson under the name Kelly Mint. She wants to check them out because they haven't paid their rent, and Freewheelin' Frankie tries to seduce her, and but she still needs the rent, and so they all have to go out and get jobs. And the Fat Freddy's character gets two different jobs. Like, I thought one was supposed to be Phineas, but then I realized, oh no, he doesn't have a beard. But then Fat Freddy loses his beard halfway. So is Phineas even in the film apart from at the beginning?
Maybe
I
not.
Figure it out. It's very poorly put together, and the sex isn't very good, and it's not funny. And it's rubbish.
It really fails on every possible count.
Yeah,
it's not good pornography. It's not It's not funny. It's not a good.
Fat Freddy's cat isn't a ginger tabby. They didn't even get that right.
Nope.
They did have a cat though.
Black and white.
Yeah, a black and white cat.
Yeah.
Well,
there's no cat sex scenes.
It's 70s porn, right? Though, or
1938. Yeah.
Oh. Well.
So. No, I wouldn't. You dodged a bullet with this one, Robin.
Well, they were probably all off their faces, so they probably just, I don't know. They couldn't concentrate from having read it to the research. I did the research, and anyway, that's my guess.
Yeah, it's just I'm surprised how little effort was put into it, really. Grateful Dead are on the soundtrack as well as another thing they ripped off. I don't think they paid the.
I'm sure they didn't.
So that's that pretty much. So So that was the unauthorized one. And then, in, I guess, 2020, we got
Yep.
The Freak Brothers, an animated TV series, of which there are 8 episodes, but we only saw 5, which is enough, really.
Yep.
I think it was getting better by the 5th one. I have a feeling it might have been slightly better towards the end. But
possibly.
It was gaining a tiny amount of momentum, but not very much.
Just tiny amount.
Yeah. Just a
Tiny amount.
Just a lid's worth of weed.
Here's a question. I've always wondered this, right?
What the fuck is a lid
What
of
the
weed?
fuck is a lid? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
No idea.
First time I've actually heard of it, I used to hear of a lid of acid. I'd heard lid of acid
Really?
before. And I was imagining, that makes sense to me because I don't know what a lid is, but I assume a lid is a lid. And that's like a petri dish or something. And I can imagine acid in that form. Like someone gives you a lid of acid, you put a sugar cube in it, and you're off. But why would you have a petri dish? What is a lid of weed?
Large.
Given me weed.
I just Googled. It's the Urban Dictionary says a lid is a large bag of marijuana or pot.
Okay, so it's just a bag.
A big bag of pot, apparently. Weird.
Yeah.
Now, is marijuana legal in Britain?
No. But
No,
it's now
because it's legal.
It's decriminalized in parts of, I think, Brixton, right, for example.
Or it's
kind of like harm reduction stuff. Okay.
They're not going to arrest you for having it, but they'll arrest you for dealing it or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's fully legal here in Canada and dispensed by the government, right? So we have government liquor stores, and we also have government cannabis stores.
And you still haven't got stoned. What's wrong with you?
I'm waiting till I retire. See, the plan is I'm going to retire out of teaching, and then I'm going to just go on. I'm going to do it all. Black tar, heroin.
But I'm assuming,
I'm
assuming if it's legal.
Yes.
Even if you were to announce your name, address, the school you teach at, right here, and that would actually be perfectly fine.
It would be, although they have given us, so they've issued all teachers the kind of like the general, I guess, like advice or whatever, is that like alcohol has a specific life span in your body, right? Like basically, if you get drunk on a Friday night, there's little chance on a Sunday morning of you still being drunk, like you'll have passed it. THC is a bit more mysterious. So there's this kind of thing where they're like, don't get stoned on a Sunday because you might still be stoned on a Monday and be at work in a compromised state. So you that's can't basically
concentrate, basically. But what I'm curious about, how long has that been for?
A couple of years now. I think it's been about 2 years.
I'm really curious about now that it's becoming legalized, because what we have in Britain, in London in particular, and actually it emanates out of London, is sort of killer weed, and this feeds into the whole debate then, because you have this weed that basically gives you psychosis of, more or less.
It doesn't put you into a coma for 50 years, does it? And then you wake up and
it's worse than that, I think.
Okay. Okay.
And then but I just wonder if those anyway. I mean, it's just an aside, but if
that's interesting. But
as statistics will build up, that will be out, that would be in favour of legalizing, because the debate is always, it's it causes so much harm, but the reason why it causes so much harm is usually because the street stuff is deliberately powerful.
The thing that fascinates me about weed now is cultures is so, like, back in the day, when me and Robin used to smoke, you'd just smoke whatever came along, right? Like, you knew various people who had things, and sometimes it would be good, sometimes it would be less good, or you'd get hash if there wasn't weed available, whatever, you'd just smoke it. We weren't picky because we couldn't be picky. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But now it seems as if you can, there's
stuff
that's specifically engineered
Yes.
to
Yeah.
deliver you a certain type of high, right?
Oh yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but
So here
that's
in
it.
Canada,
That's with the commercialization of it.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
then I wonder what, because in Britain it's really just the one thing, which is comatosing, like crippling psychosis weed, and that's all.
that's
all
the
crazy.
street stuff.
street stuff.
So
Yeah. So I wonder
here's the
what
thing.
will happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. Carry on.
So I mean, I think the way it kind of came to be legal in Canada was at a certain point the police just said we're not going to continue to enforce, like certainly not if people have it, we're not going to be arresting people for having it. But then it came through medical marijuana. It came through the fact that it's proven, you know, to be one of the only things that reduces nausea for chemotherapy patients, right? Or people who have chronic pain. So my mom has my mom has fibromyalgia, MS. Doctors started just prescribing people marijuana, right? CBD oil or
so you can get CBD oil in Britain now. Yeah.
But edibles became the new frontier here. So a lot of people who don't want to smoke will get it in like gummy bear form or, you know, things like that. And so now I would say, the lid is almost a thing of the past, because I mean, people vape here a lot. Younger people vape. So I suppose people are vaping and still using bongs, but a lot of people are just now, they're eating their.
For instance, the way it used to work in Amsterdam, for example, or in Holland in general, was you can smoke in, you know, the designated places, or you can smoke at home. I don't think you're allowed to smoke in the street. I mean, people did, but it was technically illegal. Can you smoke in the street in Canada, or is it like alcohol?
You're not really supposed to, but you can certainly smell it when you're out and about. People smoke it. You can also own 3 plants. Everyone in the country is entitled to 3 plants that you can grow in your garden, on your balcony, wherever. I don't know why it's capped at 3.
And you're still not stoned. This is insane for me. So you're waiting until you're 65.
I'm waiting for you to come to visit Prince Edward Island, Clive, and you can.
Will you get high with me if
you can take me on a magical mystery tour of this grand old island?
Okay, great. It's a date.
But yeah, anyway, so it's funny for me because now it's such a ubiquitous part of Canadian society now that it's been. I mean, it always was, and BC Bud was famous. Apparently, the British Columbia stuff. My sisters complained vociferously because, unlike me, the rest of my family did, when they were teenagers, occasionally toke. And when they moved back to Ireland, they were like, the quality of the stuff in Ireland was so awful compared to the like pristine British Columbia bud that they had been used to as teenagers. But I don't know. But generally, I think Canadian pot is quite highly thought of.
You are like a Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers character who has we're both seeing like it's like the beginning of an episode, isn't it? You're telling me your sister smoked the best butt ever? You were surrounded by weed and you never fucking smoke? Jesus Christ, man. Right, off we go. Over to Canada. Both of us arrive, huge papers. Anyway.
The other thing about the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers as well that's kind of interesting is, and I understand why, because it would be boring if you actually, I'm wondering if there are any comics out there that actually realistically show the stoner experience, because, you know, the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers get up to a whole bunch of fucking hijinks that no one in the world gets up to as sober as. And I think most of us I know, like, their adventures just stay around the kitchen table. Yeah. Like, they don't do much of anything, really. Yeah. I'm wondering if there's any, authentic stoner comics out there, like really boring comics.
Good question. But I also wonder what was, Hunter S. Thompson's kind of exaggerated tales of his own inebriation and inspiration on this stuff.
I have an interesting thing about. I was talking to David Kerekes recently, actually, and he was telling me about. I think it's some. You might have read these, Nick, so you may already know this, but they published some of his diaries or his letters or something at some point, right? And there's apparently one of them is during when he was writing Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which I know we're all fans of. And of course, I know all the adrenochrome and stuff and all that is obviously made up and heightened. But apparently, David Carricker's take on it, anyway, a friend of his telling it, what's quite interesting is when Hunter S. Thompson was actually at work, like, he was pretty sober, like, surprisingly. Like, apparently all those tales of debauchery and all that, they kind of happen around his actually sitting down to write. And the reason he brought it up is because he was saying he had a friend who, like, tried to emulate the Hunter S. Thompson lifestyle, and he was a wannabe writer, and he was like, dude, how fuck, I'm always so stoned and high, and I can't write like, how did he do it? And then he pointed out to him, well, he didn't. Like, no one can do that, really. It's an unobtainable kind of a dream to be able to be that prolific and write and actually
succinctly,
be that
can you? Anyway, I wanted to talk about the animation, because talking about people who can do stuff when they're stoned. So I think we all knew, well, maybe not. I don't know if did you hang around people who were stoned, Nick?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, we all knew people who were like somehow able to be really stoned and
yes, that's true. I have a friend now who's who can just do it.
Yeah,
like,
sort of high functioning or whatever. Yeah, I guess
you've never been able to, really, have you, Robin?
No, I've not been. No.
We've always been
a long time ago. Yeah, otherwise.
Yeah. No. But I mean, back in the day, even I remember when we did get started. I mean, pretty much that was the day was gone, right? Like, we didn't create anything.
Yeah. But Pete Davison, the guy who plays Phineas, he does a voice. He does a really good voice for some. But have you heard his story about because he's famously stoned. They're all stoners who do the voices, the main voices.
I know Woody Harrelson is famously stoned. I didn't know John Goodman.
John Goodman. I thought he was. Well, I mean, his association with Big Lebowski, isn't it?
Yeah.
I tend to think of him in that vein anyway now, but Pete Davison told this story about Louis C.K. Have you ever heard this story?
No.
About where he was getting really. This was straight after the Louis C.K. scandal and stuff, and Louis C.K.'s got this whole shtick about being a whole set about being stoned and all that. And Pete Davison said that Louis C.K. found him smoking loads of weed in his dressing room, and I was thinking before SNL, And I guess the thing about SNL, sorry, just to ramble a little bit, but the thing about SNL is the jokes aren't that funny, so you can be stoned and kind of, do it, can't you? I don't think I could. I still don't think I could do it, actually, even though it's not that hard humour. It's not like you really have to be thinking on your toes for SNL, I'd say. But anyway,
it's very rambling.
It is a bit rambling and a bit kind of like low hanging fruit humour kind of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, Louis C.K. found him in his dressing room, really, really stoned and in a cloud of fog, and then dobbed him in to the producer.
Oh, to Lorne Michaels. Now that you say that, I might have heard about this. Yeah, and, right to Lorne Michaels, who was the producer, the guy, and was like, "Hey, you need to fire him. That guy's stoned."
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and really went for him as well. Really pushed for him to be fired, which was quite a Norbert the Narc thing to do.
Yeah. No, he turned out to be quite a dick in all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
Did old Louis C.K.
They should have got him in to do the voice of Norbert the Narc for.
Yes, yeah, because he's got a kind of a nasally thing going on.
That would be good.
Do you think he tried masturbating in front of him face and he turned it down? And
that's exactly what happened.
Came in to masturbate, and Pete Davidson was like, "What the fuck are you doing, man?" I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna dump you in."
I think that
What was that you said? I'm not accent.
Can't do it.
those. No, all three of those. But I mean, I think. In fact, all four of them. I think one of the smarter choices was actually to make Fat Freddy's cat not male, because Fat Freddy's cat is definitely male in the comics, right? He's Uncle Fat Freddy's cat and stuff. But I think having Tiffany Haddish do the voice at the next level.
Sassy black chick, basically.
Yeah.
Version,
Yeah.
right?
I think
she's the woman that did that Tuca or whatever, which I didn't really. There's another animation called Tuca. So wasn't she part of BoJack Horseman or something? I didn't look up anything about her, so it's all just vague ideas. Anyway, I've seen her.
What I was thinking about Pete Davidson was the voice he's doing it's a little bit via Gilbert Gottfried, isn't it? Because at first I was wondering if it was Gilbert Gottfried, but he turned the annoying down, and like he wasn't full on. I thought it might have been Gilbert Gottfried, but so I was surprised to find that it wasn't.
I hate to ask that question, but is he still with us?
Gilbert Gottfried?
Yeah.
I get a feeling he might have died as well.
I think he might have. Yeah, so I hopefully it's not him.
Right?
Yes, I think within the last year or two, yeah.
Because he had a podcast for a while, and wisely, he did the Howard Stern style of having like a co-host, so you didn't have to listen to his voice for the whole show.
But I also think like that in a way he's doing a really authentically kind of like Berkeley radical nasal like he like it in some ways his voice sounds like it could come right out of the 60s, like some annoying college prick like
I don't know. I think it's a perfect voice that he did. Yeah, it's a real shame, isn't it?
Yeah, all the voices are good.
Yeah,
like you said,
I love Woody Harrelson's
funny
freewheeling. And you know what I like? I like the music. I like the theme song, and I think
like
there's
the
a certain
theme song as well. Yeah.
I
could get into it. Yeah,
but that's just because I'm an old man, and to be honest, the lyrics are like smoke a J and
roll
say
another
goodbye
J
today.
today.
My friends, I thought, damn, I'd like to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it kind of took me back to the 90s. To the last time I smoked.
But of course,
roll another J gets on today. Roll another J gets
it's not a particularly good song. I was just like, damn, I'd like to do that.
Yeah,
that would be fun.
No, I like it, and in fact, there is a kind of a thing that comes up in a later episode where it makes sense that they went with a kind of hip hoppy sound, because really the stoner music of the last 20 years has tended to be actually more likely to be hip hop. Like there's a lot more songs about getting high that have been hip hop songs than have been rock songs or folk songs.
Hip hop's a lot more honest in general. It's the only music you really hear that talks about just smoking weed a lot, and porn references as well. Like
tons.
We're always talking about porn and fucking and things.
Right back to the 80s. Yeah.
But you don't get that so much in like rock music and stuff like that, right?
And they certainly don't drop the names of specific, like that's, I can think of, even like House of Pain of all. You remember House of Pain? The Irish wannabe Boston. Yeah, I mean, they dropped the name of Erica Boyer, I think, in one of their most famous, like Jump Around or something like that. So but yeah, so I the music I like, it wasn't funny, but it was weirdly comforting. It was like turning my brain off and just watching it, letting the whole thing kind of just
it's not annoying. It's not annoying, and if I'd have had the other episodes, I probably would have finished it. I probably would have watched the other episodes as well. But it's not.
It's just not that good.
Yeah, the thing is, it had this tone as well that for me was very much like there's a lot of modern American comedy animation that has this exact rhythm of jokes, like like like, do you know what I mean? It's got like this
I do.
definite kind of, and I don't know, it's not that you can see the specific jokes coming, but you know that there is a joke like just subconsciously you've learned the rhythm. I think it's
like a computer algorithm
kind of thing or something. Yeah. So it's almost regardless of the writing, like you know exactly. And you mentioned BoJack Horseman; it's got that same kind of rhythm as well. I think.
Yeah, but BoJack Horseman is very enjoyable. I think, but to me anyway.
Well, the quality
because it goes to darker places.
Yeah. But do you know what I mean? It's just there's this kind of template for this kind of modern.
Maybe they wrote it with AI. So we didn't realize.
Yeah, like those weird videos on YouTube for children that have like Spider-Man like burying Captain America and stuff, and you know.
No, I don't know what
have you not seen those?
No, I'm frightened now. But...
Yeah, they're. I think they're out of China, and someone's created some kind of exactly that, this kind of AI algorithm thing. And if you go on YouTube and search, because it became a problem for a while because people were leaving their kids in front of their iPad or whatever, and then they'd go over and watch. What are you actually watching? And they'd be like these animations that were like, yeah, you'd have like Marvel characters, and then you'd have some Disney characters or something, but they'd be doing really weird, abstract, slightly disturbing things, and they were completely created by artificial intelligence. Check them out.
This is fun. But yeah, no, I do think like, I mean, I should be laughing out loud more. You know, that was what my takeaway was. Like, I very seldom laughed out loud. I might smirk, but like,
there was like it comes from a place of love in a way, right? Like, certainly I can imagine Woody Harrelson and John Goodman. At least I'm less familiar with the Pete Davidson guy, but it sounds as if they would all be very affectionate towards.
Oh yeah,
right. So it didn't feel cynical. Certainly didn't feel cynical. It was just, I don't know. Yeah, it just wasn't.
And the humor tends towards the gross out more than the actual.
Yeah, the comics
do.
But this was the thing when. So the early comics did sort of do that a lot, but it's sort of it's lessened by being in a comic or something. I don't know. It's strange. Right. It's sort of it becomes overdone and garish or whatever. I don't know, or like
a bit too much Fat Freddy shitting.
Fart noises and stuff where it's supposed to be funny, where he farts in his sleep and it's not funny. It's just
and again,
guy farting. I don't know. So.
Yeah, part of that rhythm I was talking about as well is the kind of every now and again throw in an edgy kind of thing, like when they had the benefit for the rapists and Peter Dinklage suddenly turning up, and the stand-in for Stephen Hawking being thrown down
that was
garbage chute and stuff like that. Like they can't help themselves.
It seems like sort of they're similar to the SNL humor again, like how that sort of like they try and take the low-hanging fruit but if you if you do that, so it's almost like they wrote it stoned, and they should have done what Hunter S. Thompson does and not not be stoned and concentrated really hard on what they were doing and get it right. Because it just felt like they were chuckling about uproariously stoned about the idea of this Stephen Hawking character going down the rubbish chute and then did it without realizing that's not actually that funny.
It's a very old. I mean, we were all making fun of Stephen Hawking years ago.
Yeah,
right? Like we don't do it anymore.
It's not done anymore.
Yeah,
let the guy rest and.
No, I think, and that stuff reminds me more of like Family Guy, like Seth MacFarlane kind of.
Yeah, I think that is the big one. That is all this stuff, that rhythm I was talking about. I think
that's where it comes from too.
Guy thing.
Yeah, and but I would say, I mean, it's not all great, but I think the first 2 seasons of Rick and Morty are very solid. I think they're genuinely strange and funny and just weird. And then, like anything else, it gets into a pattern and it gets into a formula to some degree. But certainly, maybe even just the first season, that seems like it's doing something else. That doesn't seem like Family Guy. That doesn't seem like
it has the template, but it's drifting away from it a little bit. Or it's I
think what the Freak Brothers one did was just try to introduce modern characters who didn't necessarily need to be there. Maybe like the Freak Brothers comic didn't have many other characters. As in they featured, but they didn't.
That's my recording.
Yeah, they featured, but they didn't. They didn't like become part of it.
Yes.
Whereas this, they move into this flat, and then you have to get to know these boring characters who don't have much to do with them. Yeah, they were in this.
They've been teleported into a modern
a shit sitcom like Grey's Anatomy or something.
Yeah.
Well, I think the family they are kind of slightly boring characters, right? The family they like they're very.
Yeah, they're modern and boring as well, though. They're we'll have the guy
I suppose that's supposed to be the joke, isn't it? That how things have changed, and
I thought they didn't get as much comic mileage out of that premise either. Like that, there wasn't enough of them being outrageously out of touch, or every now and again, like Freewheeling Frank might get like a comment that you're like, oh, that's that's very on PC or whatever. I felt like they could have gotten a lot more mileage out of that stuff than they actually did.
Yeah, well, I suppose they don't address the fact that Freewheeling Frankie hitting on the daughter probably is a bit more icky for most people nowadays. Like, I'm surprised they didn't bring it. Like, that seems to be just perfectly fine. I mean, I agree. But
did he hit on the daughter? I thought he just hit on the sister.
Oh, sister, sorry. But she does look pretty
young.
No, I didn't mean the other one. Yeah.
Like the 11-year-old,
Yeah, no. Okay. That would be, verging on unacceptable.
But then if they've time traveled, are they not supposed to be? They just look kind of sketchier. But are they not supposed to be all about the same age, like in their 30s?
I know she struck me as for some reason I thought because she's the younger sister as well.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, I think it would have been best just to like transport. I think it was fine to transport them into the modern era, but have it be as shambolic and also just do the long forms comics that they did later on really do lend themselves. And maybe they were trying to be more authentic to the original earlier comics and do almost like a sketch form. And that didn't.
Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily need the modern family as an interface, right?
No, they could have just
have them wake up in and then try to negotiate the world.
Yeah. That would have been fine. That would have been much better. I don't know why they did that.
But then again, I mean, I'm kind of glad this exists. I'm glad someone had a go at it, even if it's it did quite work out. I think it's I don't feel like it's someone's like trampled all over the that they got the wrong end of the stick, or they were cynical, or that they just don't get it. I think it's just genuine, a bit of a misfire, but came from they tried. I think they did try.
Yeah. I will say too, John Goodman's choice of like doing the higher pitched, like curly version of the heavy guy is a really interesting and good choice, because in my head I probably would have assumed they'd go for the the fat guy voice or whatever, like a deeper, bassier. But I really like the choice to make it this kind of weird, high pitched man child.
Yeah,
I think it works really well.
Yeah.
It sounds about right, doesn't it? There we go then. So that's the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers comics, unauthorized porno spin-off and animated TV series. Thank you very much for guesting, Robin.
That's all right. I hope I didn't make it go too long. The rambling.
Maybe we'll follow this up with a Big Bang companion piece.
I would love to do, for sure.
Right. Until then,
so
keep on trucking.